and sit down. I think we can see Inger Christensen is very very famous in Denmark anyway, Danish poet, and quite widely translated recently into English as well. She is a so-called system poet, so most of her sequences or collections are based on various systems. And the collection I'm reading from tonight, or I prefer to say just one long poem, it's called The Alphabet. It's from 1981. It is published in English by the translator Susanna Need. I still haven't read her translation, but you're obviously welcome to if you want to get the whole work rather than just extracts. The work is based on two sequences, one being the alphabet, as suggested by the title. It's in 14 parts, and each part starts out with a listing of things that exist. And the first part is then things beginning with the letter A, which is one thing, and then goes on to the letter B and C and so on. There are 14 parts, so we get up to the letter N. The other system it's based on is Fibonacci's mathematical sequence. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. I will explain it. It's a principle of growth that's apparently found in nature, but it's a series of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding numbers. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and then grows exponentially. So part 14 has got a lot of lines, basically the system that decides the number of lines in each part. The reason I chose to translate this poem, I think, is the challenges that you're faced with translating poetry can be understood here very kind of literally, in a very concrete way. The choices are almost simple. It's, do we follow her system and then lose some of the semantic meaning, which is the kind of simple lexicon? What is it that's most important? And I found that I could decide on the strategy beforehand. I just had to give it a go. So the first, with the letter B, the first problem is encountered there, that we've got the word blend, which means hydrogen, which isn't with a B, and obviously looking for similes and trying to find ways around it. And in each case I had to decide, do I translate the word or do I find a word that's similar? So like with letter N, part 14, I don't use even plurals. I find another flower and start with them because it's just not important enough. But obviously it's imperfect, translations always will be, I think, but I try to do a poetic translation rather than a literal one, so anyway, I'm going to start reading instead of talking. I'm going to read just the first 4 parts from the Danish text. This is Inger Christensen's collected work. She's quite prolific, as I said, and then I'll read the extracts in the translation. Aprikostræerne findes, bregnene findes, og brumbær, og brum findes, og brinten. Cikaderne findes, cikorie, ro, og citrontræer findes, cikaderne findes, cikaderne sidder, citrus, cerebellum. Duerne findes, drømmene, dukkene, dræbene findes, duerne. Dioxin og dagene findes. Dagene, død og digtene findes. Digtene, dagene, død. So that was ending on the letter D. I don't know if you kind of got the sense of this alliteration, which isn't as consistent in my version. So this is parts 1 to 5, and then an extract from part 13 and an extract from part 14. Apricot trees exist. Apricot trees exist. Bracken exists, and blackberries. And bromine exists, and hydrogen. Cicadas exist, chicory, crow, and citrus trees. Cicadas exist. Cicadas, cedar, cypress, cerebellum. Doves exist. Dreams, dolls, death-bringers exist. Doves, doves. Haze, dioxin and days, days exist. Days, death and poems exist. Poems, days, death. See, that should have been poems, days, death, all with a D, but it's not. Just to draw attention to these words that scream out that they're not starting with the right letter. Evening exists, and effects of taste and thoughts exist, and enclosures exist. Angels, widows and elks exist. Episodes exist. Memory and the evocative light it sheds exist. Elder trees and elm trees exist, and the juniper, entities, estrangement exist, and the eider and spider exist, and Isel exists, and the effects of everything existing now. It is fairly new that I hear cicadas, here where it is cold, and they therefore don't exist. Maybe this is how it always has happened, when the light travels north, accompanied by the birch. As when a room from a dream once dreamt on a journey is the exact room one comes home and moves into. There exists a drawing of an encapsulated child that is squatting down in a rather small crystal. It is like in dreams which neither are dreamt by humans, animals nor birds, maybe by insects, maybe by the traveller himself who for so long looks away from himself and is dispersed in the birch's haze, maybe by a child who persistently studies a forest lake and finds that the soul can be dreamt by cicadas. It sometimes happens when the snow has melted that everything it hid appears so the soul can be seen, like when death doesn't really become visible until someone looks at the present the deceased took with him in the grave. I think it resembles the pale metal box I long have known I will be taking. It contains nothing but a coin, a silver thimble, a tooth, and a small empty bottle. But its fragrance, when one opens it up, fulfills everything, like the midnight sun. This is how I have thought of the imagination, as a clear crystal room surrounding the deathbed, where the deceased doesn't really look like himself until he's left the others.